That's the Scarborough campus.
Yeah. Islam.
Islam.
Islam. Peace and Hotep. I want to give shout out to all the Moors everywhere, all the Moors worldwide. It's June 10th, Canaanland Moors class, and today's class we're gonna start up today's class with some questions. Some people sent some questions and all that. So we're gonna hit up the questions, get that out the way, and then go into some information. Of course, we'll start with the reading because we're getting a lot of people coming into the movement right now. A lot of people are waking up to the truth about their nationality and birthrights. And there's still a lot of confusion with regard to, where do you go? And I went to this temple and these guys are saying, $8 million for nationality cards or whatever. So we're going to put out there the reading to be proclaimed every meeting. One of the readings, because Drew Ali knew that something was coming. Drew Ali knew that the Moors had to be brought up to speed with the fact that if anything's going to happen with regard to the Moorish movement, it's the Moors that's going to do it. And then he was specific, saying that it's going to be faithful Moors, loyal Moors, and members of the temples, right? So to be proclaimed in every meeting. Islam, I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people on our side of the nation that claim it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they themselves may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the last few years. Oh yeah, and honors to Allah, honors to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, honors to Marcus Garvey, and all the individuals that came to get our people back in a national mindset so they can be prepared for this electrifying age that we're in right now that Noble Drew Ali talked about. And, being that we're in that place, it's definitely time for, the people to change their tune. You had that, we could do that 7th site page or whatever, the 7th insight or whatever, the thing the first part that you marked. Yeah,
I marked it for them, but I thought it was the one
I think it was the 7th, pretty sure that was the first one.
I don't know what this one is. You see the thing yourself that you're a minister, teacher, prophet?
Yeah, that one.
If you perceive within yourself that you are a minister, teacher, prophet, a man or a woman of God, then you must bring your perception of yourself and your daily activities into harmony with one another. You cannot feel like a prophet yet talk like a pimp. You cannot feel like an MC yet spend your day working a 9-to-5 job. At some point there will be a conflict between the true nature of your being and the activities of your physical body in the world. This process is not easy. This is why spiritual training is so important. Such training helps you to center and balance the activities of your mind and body toward the spirit. For if you instruct your body to do something and the body is unwilling or has something more pressing to do, such a body instantly becomes your prison, even your master. And this is the state that many people live within daily. They say, I know that I am a very talented MC, as an example, and I would truly like to only do this with my life. In my heart, I want to live this. But then the circumstances of the physical world operating upon the physical body have such a person following the desires, cravings, fears, and doubts of the physical body, as opposed to fearlessly following the truth of his being, which is not physical at all. Know this, if you are to achieve anything in this world, you must be willing to suffer for it. And not that suffering is a requirement of achievement, or that you will even have to suffer at all, but in truth, if you are not willing to suffer to actualize your true self, then you are simply not worthy of your true self. This path leads toward eternal joy, is paved by denying temporary happiness. It is the power of one's creative spirit that brings non-physical ideas into physical manifestation. During this process, the intelligence of the physical body doubts and fears the activities of the spirit. And this conflict is what causes suffering. Decide now who you are going to be and stick with that. For when you, spirit, are in conflict with the desire, cravings, fears, and doubts of the physical body, such conflict confuses the mind, and then nothing can get done. You must decide right now if you truly are who you say you are.
So you must decide right now. Right? Right? And that's the Gospel of Hip Hop, KRS-One. And no, he doesn't wear a fez or nothing like that, but he's talking about moral science. Right? Gospel of Hip Hop. Right? He's definitely talking about moral science. Right? One basic truth can be used as a foundation for a mountain of lies. And if we dig down deep enough in the mountain of lies and bring out that truth to set it on top of the mountain of lies, the entire mountain of lies will crumble under the weight of that one truth. And there is nothing more devastating to a structure of lies than the revelation of the truth upon which the structure of lies was built. Because the shock waves of the revelation of the truth reverberate and continue to reverberate throughout the earth for generations to follow, awakening even those people who had no desire to be awakened to the truth. Delamar Duvers. And as you know, behold the pale horse. Right? So let's get these questions up and see what we can do to help some of these Moors out here. First question. So we have about 13 questions. Some of them, it will be require shorter answers than others, but we'll deal with it. One, and these first two questions are from Brother Khalid Bey. Regarding all forms of Freemasonry, Shrinery, etc., that hold symbolisms of subjugation to the Asiatic, sword over the crescent, what is your viewpoint concerning an Asiatic joining conscious Moor and an unconscious Moor? Okay. Masonry, for people who don't know, Masonry is, I was telling somebody today, Masonry is bastardized moral science. Right?
European
Masonry, yeah, Freemasonry,
Scottish
lodges,
Rite, York Rite.
Scottish Rite, Prince Hall,
York Rite.
Shriners, York Rite, KKK, whatever, right? All those fraternities that Europeans push as secret societies, all those are bastardized or lower forms of Moorish science, right? So for a conscious Moor to be part of that, right, they're doing themselves a disservice, because there's nothing that they can get from those quote-unquote secret societies, because it's a secret, and the secret is that, you know, all the information in there is ours, right? In a certain degree, right?
In addition to that, the secret is that all that information is being used
to keep us enslaved, right? To keep us subjugated, right? So a conscious Moor saying, hey, I'm going to go be a Mason, or I'm going to go join a lodge because, you know, I'm a Moor and I could go join anything or whatever, is the wrong perspective. You better off go join a temple or create your own institution to bring people from initiates to adepts. Because that's really what the lodge is.
Right.
The lodge is for Europeans to go in and learn the truth about
school.
Yeah, learn the truth about history. You know what I mean? Sciences, astrology, etc. So they can be better people, right? I mean, you know, they take it and go where they want with it, but that's the idea. For an unconscious Moor to go join the lodge,
it might be the start for them becoming conscious.
It might be a start to becoming conscious, but what you're going to quickly realize is that they're going to push you into something called Prince Hall. They're going to push you into something called, you know, for the blacks. Masonry for the black guys.
Yeah,
right? Two
lodges.
different levels, right? I was speaking with Brother Bakari Bey, and Brother Bakari was under the I'm going to join a lodge before he came into Moor Science, right? So, you know, he went to check it out or whatever. And first thing he realized that, hold on a second. So, you know, this is you guys' lodge? Yeah, you know, the black lodge, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, we're the black guys and we whatever, right? And they had some shack or whatever as their lodge. And then up the street, the Europeans, they got like the
mansion.
Right?
Yeah.
They got the mansion, you know what I mean? The freaking marble stairs, you know what I mean? The gold door with the, you know, go inside, they got the chandelier with the carpet, and right? So immediately he realized, okay, something's wrong.
Yeah.
If those guys have that, but then, you know, when Masons come together, they're all talking brother and whatever like that, but then these guys have a shack as their lodge. And the Europeans aren't being brotherly in taking some of their fiat to help them have something a little bit more.
More importantly, they're not joined together.
Right, and they're not together.
Which should be an indication right there that it's still.
So any unconscious Moors that people encounter that are speaking the perspective of Masonry and, you know, we know what this is about and, you know what I mean? We have our own black version and all that type of stuff. Just send them to moorcivilletter.net, right? Brother Abdullah's number is on his website. You can call Brother Abdullah Abdullah El Talib Mozi Bey, and he'll come out to their lodge and do a lecture on Moors and Masonry. So those unconscious Moors could realize that Masonry is really their stuff. European doesn't really care about you guys, right? Recognizing that when Europeans came to the Americas and made the statement that, you know, we're declaring our independence from England, that they basically voided all their charters that they had from the lodges in England, because you can't, you know, say I don't want nothing to do with England, but we'll keep the charter that you guys gave us, right, in order to have a lodge.
Well, part of me thinks though that, I think we talked about this before when we even talked about law, that, you know, when you're asking these magistrates what they have an oath to, sometimes they have the oath to the so-called corporate entity, and they have a higher oath to the lodge.
To the lodge.
So one may think, or I can sometimes imagine that possibly those things can maybe happen, just hypothetically speaking. I agree with you, but I'm thinking to myself, maybe they can still be connected with the lodges back there, because those lodges are probably, like we know, running the show more than really the corporations are.
Right.
In a sense,
Well,
right? Just that's
Yeah,
just
right,
speaking
right,
of.
for sure. Another thing too to keep in mind is that Prince Hall
Mhm.
also has a charter from England.
Yeah, no, I know.
He got permission though,
Right,
and he never declared no independence.
right. So he's
So
the real
the
hall
real lodge
is Prince Hall.
is Prince Hall,
Right. No, I know that.
and everybody else is a fraud.
Right.
But this is where Brother Abdullah comes in.
Right.
That when those individuals that are in those things realize, hold on a second, what do you mean you guys don't have no charter? You guys declared independence or whatever. Now we're talking about hundreds of years ago that they said we don't want nothing to do with England.
Mhm.
So since that time, whatever these people out here call lodges are really just, organizations, fraternal organizations. It's not really lodges per se. They're just exercising as lodges,
Right.
right? Because it's still giving England and all these other people some footing in
Right.
the Americas.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Almost
Right.
it could be like the little satellites here, right?
Right, exactly.
Little satellite
Right.
offices.
Their little
here.
satellite office in
Right.
the Americas for
Right.
them to, get a little bit closer to the
And
estate
as
that
you-
they're trying to
As you
achieve.
say, though, I mean, when you think about how layered this is, when you realize that everything's corruption to begin with, this may be some kind of design deploy too, right? Because
Right.
ultimately, there is no Canada here,
Right.
right?
That too.
So ultimately, maybe the lodges are even more important to them
Right.
because the lodges represent what's really going on,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, that's just thinking off the top.
Right. The next question had to do with numerology. Let's try to find something to do all this stuff. All right. So, so. Next question is regarding numerology. Do you have any good books you can refer me to for how to interpret the numbers? Right. So, one you can try to see if it's up there. Because remember that when we talk about numerology, it numerology goes into all other things as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not like there's quote unquote numerology, right? It's an aspect of more science.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna overlap with other stuff, right? So one individual that you can go to for information with regard to all that stuff is Hilton Hotima, and this one is called Ancient Secret of Personal Power Tetragrammatic, right? Which deals with high science, ancient secret sciences that are accessible. Hilton Hotima wasn't some, hide it, put the information out there,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's also a book called Stellar Theology and Masonic Astronomy, and that's by Robert Hewitt Brown. All right, Stellar Theology and Masonic Astronomy. You could also get these books through dralimelbay.com. Right, that's how we got it. And again, Hilton Hotima and Cosmic Science of the Ancient Masters. Right? So do your research on Hilton Hotima. I'm sure if you go on Google and you look for some Hilton Hotima PDFs, you can find some. If you can't find any, if you got Facebook, there's a brother by the name of Casanova Bay who has a knack for finding PDF books online, right? He might even have some of these books already in his little data bank of books. So if you got Facebook, Casanova Bay, Zahir Casanova Bay, Casanova Zahir Bay, and he'll direct you or connect you with some literature that's on PDF, right? So hope those questions got answered. If they weren't answered, you could email canaanlandguide@gmail.com, and we'll direct you to some more answers, or some more people that might have answers. Also, too, with regard to the numerology, Brother Alim, Dr. Alim El Bey, master numerologist, you can get at him. He has books. You can also get at Brother Abdullah. You talk to him, Doctor Etymology himself. He'll probably have some information, books. You might want to contact Brother Abdullah to get on his mailing list, because he's always sending out emails with information that he just, that he finds out there. So his website is moorishcivilletter.net. Moorish, CIVILETTER.net. Next question was from Brutus Empire. What's the proper way to get a birth certificate for a new baby? Now, if you're not on nationality and birth rights for 6 months, a year, and you just heard something about birth certificate fraud and whatever, first thing that you want to do is you want to go out, right? You want to go out and you want to get a stamp that reads this on it. It maybe cost you $15, $20. More than that? Sorry, 30, whatever. But we're talking about livelihood right here. So small price to pay for freedom. So you're gonna get a stamp made that says this on it, right? And anything that you do out there with regard to signatures or signing something, you're gonna stamp this and then sign over it, right? That's the proper way to get a birth certificate. Not that you should want to get one, but you're under occupation, threat, duress, and coercion. The most immediate thing that you need to know is how to live within contracts, right? Because remember that the birth certificate itself is a void instrument from its inception. So it has no power of what, they say that it is, right? It's an instrument that allows you to sell your offspring to the state, and they take the energy of the birth record and they create a bond, call it a birth certificate, and then they sell that around the world and create stocks and stock markets and all that type of stuff, right? So you might want to study birth records or creating birth records, right? You can just go online and look up birth record, and you, your spouse, wife, whatever, create a birth record, right? The birth record would entail having the parents on it, the parents' thumbprint, something like that on it, parent's signature on it, and the offspring's handprint, footprint, right? As well, because Moors are active and not passive, and because Moors have been doing so much work that people have been neglecting forever, because people just think Moors are religious idiots or whatever, right? If you go to Khalifa Media actually has birth and baptismal record template that you can get from them, right? And then, just so you know, it's tried, tested, true, and accepted by state agencies. Yeah, because that's power of birth rights. That's the power of nationality
underneath indigenous.
underneath our nation state.
Okay.
Our nation state of Moors that are active, no different than RV Bay has nationality cards for everybody to get if you want one, right? Because we're a nation state, right? So does Khalifa Media have birth and baptismal records, you know, matrimony records or certificates or whatever it is that we need, right? They're not a certificate, but a document
Right.
for you to make your claim that, you know, you performed matrimony obligation ceremony or whatever, that you had an offspring and whatever, right? Key point to remember with regard to exercising anything, you know, like even something like this. If you're fidgety with this before you stamp the paper, right, you're killing yourself.
Why?
Because you can't be fidgety. You either do it or don't do it. Don't. Should I do it? Do you guys accept these if I put this on the thing or whatever like that? Don't even go there.
When I put them
Either
on, I
you
see them look at
yeah.
that and they just do what they have to do.
Do what they got to do.
They don't
Right.
question it anymore.
Right? Right. They don't question it anymore because you prove that you're competent to do that.
That's right.
Right? So make sure that, you know, these vampires out here, when you're exercising nationality and birthrights,
Right.
make sure that these vampires don't smell fear, because as soon as they smell fear, you know they're sucking. You know, and wherever they bite, that's where they're gonna suck. Right? And more than likely, they're gonna try go after the mother to go suck her, or they're gonna get the dad out the way so they can suck the mom and the child or whatever. Right? Because we're dealing with vampiric nature type of people. We're dealing with succubus entities.
I got something for you.
Right? Yeah.
The world of nature, with its system of prey and predators, is a projection of spiritual reality. Just as the deer is hunted by the lion, human beings are hunted by devils. Not half human, half animal caricatures, but in fact, jealousies, greeds, hatreds, fears, temptations, etc. In the realm of spirit, these predators are real. They eat and eventually deplete one's life force. We will become aware of our true reality and be better equipped to protect ourselves when we understand that we are part of a spiritual food chain system, just as the deer is part of a natural food chain system. All day and night we are giving and receiving the conscious breath of life. But spiritual beasts, devils, in things, seek to deplete our life force, our consciousness, in quotes again, for their own nourishment. Randomly, these packs of predators seek our life force to sustain themselves. Jealousies, greeds, hatreds, lusts, fears, etc. are like real beasts. They have no life unto themselves, so they seek the life force emanating from us to survive.
Right?
I mean that.
And again, that's the gospel of hip hop. Right? Remember, the gospel of hip hop.
That's right. Godspell.
Right? Right?
Well, that was just another one, but it speaks to
everything's relative.
It speaks to exactly what's going on, because ultimately the Albion is sucking off of our life force.
Right.
It's exactly what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, mother suckers. Right. That's how they get down. Yeah. So we have to be prepared, and you know, things like this.
This is in the physical world.
Yeah, things like this, things like studying, right, are shields out here.
As well as coming together.
Unification, right? Same mindset. Moorish catechism. You know what I mean? Everybody, you know, reading their 101s, reading their Quran, oral statements, right? Everybody thinking in the same level, right? No, it's all good, yo, right? So, Brother Brutus Empire, you know, if that answered anything. If not, CanaanlandGuide@gmail.com, and we'll get you some further info. And this is going to be pattern now, so you can get the word out, right? That people got questions out there, send an email, and then we'll try answer the questions in class. Question 4. I've heard that when we are in so-called courts, that we are not supposed to cross the quote-unquote bar or a certain area in there. What is it about this that we should do or not do? And that's to Phoebe Ray Bay sent that question. So bar, a partition or railing running across a courtroom intended to separate the general public from the space occupied by the judges, counsel, jury, and others concerned in the trial of a cause. In the English courts, it is the partition behind which all outer barristers and every member of the public must stand. Solicitors, being officers of the court, are admitted within, as are also Queen's Counsel, barristers with patents of precedence, and sergeants, in virtue of their ranks. Parties who appear in person also are placed within the bar on the floor of the court. A particular part of the courtroom, for example, the place where prisoners stand at their trial, hence the expression prisoner at the bar. The court, in its strictest sense, sitting in full term, the presence, actual or constructive, of the court. Thus, a trial at bar is one had before the full court, distinguished from a trial had before a single judge at nisi prius, NISI PRIUS. So the case at bar is the case now before the court and under its consideration, the case being tried or argued. In another sense, the whole body of attorneys and counselors, or the members of the legal profession collectively, who are figuratively called the bar, from the place which they usually occupy in court. They are thus distinguished from the bench, which term denotes the whole body of judges. In the practice of legislative bodies, the outer boundary of the House, therefore all persons not being members who wish to address the House or are summoned to it appear at the bar for that purpose. In the law of contracts, an impediment, obstacle, or preventative barrier. Thus, relationship within the prohibited degrees is a bar to marriage. In this sense, also, we speak of the bar of the statute of limitations, that which defeats, annuls, cuts off, or puts an end to. In pleading, a special plea constituting a sufficient answer to an action at law, so called because it barred, i.e. prevented, the plaintiff from further prosecuting it with effect, and if established by proof, defeated and destroyed the action altogether, now called a special plea in bar. It may be further described as a plea or preemptory exemption of a defendant to destroy the plaintiff's action. A barrier or counter over which liquors and food are passed to customers, hence the portion of the room behind the counter where the liquors sales are kept is the bar. Right? No, blacks. So, with the question, I've heard that when we go in a so-called court, that we are not supposed to cross the bar. Well, if it's a so-called court, then that's not a bar that you're crossing. Just another room. It's just, gate, fence, whatever, door, right? And keep in mind that if you, in these, kangaroo administrative jurisdictions, if you don't cross the bar, they're going to issue a warrant and come bring you there. So it's in your best interest to, again, understand the laws that govern contracts, right? Learn how to reserve your rights on contracts so that when alleged claims are made against you, you can confidently go in there and kick their ass at law because they're not legitimate. Secondly, what we have to recognize and understand and keep in mind at all times, that Moors who are coming into this information, majority of the Moors have received information about going into the court and don't cross the bar and, things of that nature from sovereign European teachings, right? So be mindful of certain things that are said, because if we take the position, for example, if we take the position of, well, I'm not going in there, I'm not going to cross the bar, then you're going to get a warrant every time that you don't go in there, right? And like the definition was saying, you know, the people who have anything to do with the trial should cross the bar, because that's the only way you're going to get to talk, because you can't be outside the bar and want drinks, right? You can't put in an order for drinks at the bar from outside.
I was looking in here for the other meaning of the bar. I remember a few years ago hearing and thinking that the word bar came from the sandbar, which had to do with admiralty law, which had to do originally that when they were here, that because this is all based in admiralty law,
Right.
what would happen was the judges would sail up on the ships.
Mhm.
They would stay on the ships.
Right.
That would keep them on the water.
On the admiral, keep them in admiralty jurisdiction.
Right.
Right.
And the people would come to the bar,
Right.
which would be the sandbar.
Right.
And that was representative. That's where the word bar has come from, which
Right.
is the sandbar.
Right.
And that
Now,
once you crossed onto the bar, this is where I think the sort of the possibly probably being true, but not. But this is where that comes from.
Yeah,
that when you
the
step
concept,
onto,
yeah.
when you come onto the sandbar,
Yeah.
you're then putting yourself into their jurisdiction.
right. Now,
I don't know if you've heard.
the issue with that. The issue that I have with that is that we're the admirals.
No, 100%.
So they can't claim any jurisdiction about admiralty, maritime, or anything like that,
100%.
and have legitimacy if we also claim that we're Moors.
100%.
Right.
That's
But
what
yeah,
we
the
have
concept
to be.
is
We have to be competent
Right.
and operating on that to
Right.
take over our
Right.
rightful place.
But also too, remember that if now let's just say with what you're saying, right? They tell you come to the bar, and then we're trying to justify why we shouldn't have to come to the bar because admiralty, jurisdiction, whatever else, right? That's subject matter, and you just gave jurisdiction without even going in the bar.
Say that again. If you're there.
If you're talking to them about stuff that has and nothing to do with them putting their status on the record,
Right.
you just admitted the jurisdiction.
100%. 100%.
So don't worry about no bar because you're in the jurisdiction already for talking subject matter.
Sure.
When you should stick to status. Now, we do know that we're under occupation. These people are going to be using threats, duress, coercion, fraud, go down the list, right? They're going to be doing everything in their power to try to embezzle, racketeer, cheat, whatever they could get from the people, right? So the people, the Moors, have to be in the mindset of not even being in the position that somebody's going to have to give you something for you to even go in that so-called place in the first place. Stay the hell out of that place. Because you already know that when you go in there, they're going to railroad you. Because it's not even a legitimate jurisdiction to call it a quote-unquote court. So, and then this is where it's coming back to, be what you know and stuff we were reading before, right? So that we can divinely line ourselves up in a way that we stay out of those places, right? Because it's not about going up in those places to go try to claim your right or get your right back or whatever. Because those are administrative buildings and they have nothing to do with rights. Rights are void in those places. The only reason that Moors go into that jurisdiction called administrative court more than likely is because somebody assumed that you're a nigger and they gave you a ticket or they gave you, they made some kind of claim or they sued you in some type of capacity to make you have to go in there. But ultimately, it's really not about going there. Like Brother Taj had an example of, the ship-proof wetsuit.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can put on the ship-proof wetsuit and then go swim in the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's good because we got the suit, face, no shit's getting on my face, my hands are covered, feet are covered, whatever. How about not going in the ship pool? Opposed to trying to find a way to swim in it safely. How about just not go in it?
Ultimately, the problem is that they're coming in, even if we are, well, ultimately, they have been running this fraud for so long,
Yep.
and we have not been declaring our stuff, that this becomes second nature
Right.
to them. And
To
that's,
them.
And that's the real problem, but as well as we are living within the contract of staying out of this altogether.
Right.
Follow the rules for now until we can get to a level of competency.
And remember, don't get mad. Don't get mad at these, escheating Europeans. They've been doing what they're doing. Get mad at these dirty Moors who sold their birthright to these people. Because really that's the issue.
Yeah. Right. Ultimately, the laws are there to be.
Everything's there.
To have us protected and have our own.
We're super protected. Not as Negro, black, colored people, or Africans,
right.
Or, incompetent idiots. There's no protection, right? Which, why Noble Drawley said, study, 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 because once you study, you'll realize something's wrong, and you'll keep studying to try to fix that wrong, right? The second question from Sister Phoebe: how can unconscious, conscious Moors handle getting the criminal records for the straw expunged as to not show in the computer system for the purpose of obtaining work? The best thing that you can do, handle getting the quote-unquote criminal records of the straw expunged to not show in the computer, is get a trade and work for yourself. Because when you have a trade, doesn't matter what your criminal record is, because trades are universal. Trades allow you to have a record and still be able to go build something for somebody, because it has nothing to do with, them going and looking in the computer to see if you're qualified to work or do you have any records. Because your skill is what is going to make you get that job or not. Not whether you got something on record or not. Because, trust me, these people that set up this whole, criminal records and what's the other thing? Credit report and all this type of stuff, right? All that is set up by design for us to think that they have some authority or jurisdiction.
Well, as well as when we are in our unauthoritative position, to allow them the classification system.
Right.
Right? They don't have any authority of us when we're Moors, but when we're niggers and blacks,
they got all the authority.
And then they can say, well, this isn't a good nigger.
Right.
This is a good nigger. This is a good nigger who follows the thing.
Follows the rules and whatever. Stay, in the house. But that's field nigger, so he's gonna have some scratches and stuff because he's in the bushes picking whatever we send him to pick.
I think ultimately too, I think we've talked about this before, is that you have your choices. If you're stuck within certain situations, you may need to follow their so-called guidelines.
Right.
If that is what you need to do.
Which comes back to learning to live within contracts.
Right, which might mean you might need to go look for a, what do you call it, a pardon. Or
right,
something
right.
Like
Because there's other means to go about that. Like, to get that charge or off the record or whatever. Like for example, like I know a brother, right, who he did big time, right, for same crap that brothers get themselves into, caught up street life, whatever, right? And yeah, he put out some fiat, and now he works at a hospital now.
Yeah, exactly.
He did like 8 years or something like that.
Exactly. What
Well, he
happens-
works at a hospital right
Well,
now.
that's what's crazy. When you realize at the end of the, they just still want some more of
It's
your
all
energy.
about fiat.
They all just want some more of your
All about
energies,
some fiat.
right?
So if you could round up some fiat and go, quote unquote, buy a
Your so-called
buy a pardon,
yeah.
right?
That might be the option that you have to take.
That might be an option that you have to take.
But I think when you look at it in its wholeness, I think you would want to understand that these people don't have any hold on you, or shouldn't
Right.
have any hold on you.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Now these next three next four questions is from let's just say unconscious more, just coming in trying to figure out whatever, right? So first question is being a more a belief, right? Okay, well, being a more isn't a belief; it's actually factual, right? Being a more isn't religious or cult-like or anything like that. It's birthright.
Mm-hmm.
It's who we are from birth, and
Nation.
it's connected to a nation. If we choose not to be a more, then we're believers, right? Just like we were saying, be what you know. You have to be what you know. When you study, you know, and when you know, you apply, and then when you apply, stuff happens, and you get things done, right? So, anybody telling you that more is a belief system or belief or anything like that, don't even go there. Being a more is who we are because
It's
our
also,
mom
I
made
think,
us
what,
Moors.
one of our masters says is it's a bloodline,
Right,
right? It's who we, it's where we come from.
exactly. Right. And also, too, look up more. So you can see it's not a belief that, it's something that's been around for a little while, right? Why is our nationality Moorish American? Why is our nationality Moorish American? Numerology teaches that we are Moorish American because we are descendants of Moroccans born in America. And he also teaches that Moroccans are the modern name and the ancient name of Moroccans is Moabites, right? So keep those things in mind so that when we get when we get challenged
Right.
about, well, why are you Moorish American or whatever? You study what you were given by the prophet, so you can answer people in an intelligent tone.
Right. Right.
Because and again, it comes back to like we were saying, you can't. This has to be something that's part of us.
Right.
If it's something that we're
I'm not
well
sure.
and all that, then more than likely, whoever's challenging you is gonna assume that you're a fraud and then not take your position serious. All right. And just for everybody out there in class land, I'm just messing with the text, but Sister Raz said Islam to all the Moors. Stay on your stuff, right? And thank you for using rvbaypublications.com as your reference for your studies, right? How are we Asiatic if Asia is in the east? But Asia is in the east, the west, the north, and the south. That's why we're Asiatic, because Asia isn't the continent over there. Asia is what the world was known as at one time, right? And then you could just do your etymology research with regard to Asia and Asiatic, so you can get a better or a broader perspective of Asia and how we're Asiatics. Why do Moors say America is also Africa? Aren't they two different continents? Well, let's answer your question with your question. Why do Moors say America is also Africa? So, yeah, so if Moors say that America is also Africa, then that means they're not two continents. It's one.
Right.
That's why Moors say that America is Africa. Because if we go to you could research King Alfred Plan, Jose Pimenta Bay, Henry de Bernardo, of course, Taj Tariq Bay, RV Bay Publications. You'll quickly find out that we've been so gamed, we've been so left in the dark that we don't even recognize that, Memphis is a name from Kemet, but that's over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We read last week from Moors in America, where they have a list in the book, Moors in America, that you can get on Amazon.com, and the list is talking about the ancient names versus the modern names in the Americas. And a lot of the names in the Americas that are ancient names, you can also find them in Kemet and other places in the world, not just Kemet, right? To show that this land, because it has names of quote-unquote African countries here, obviously this is Africa. If there's places in the Americas, if there's places in the Americas that we can find those same names across the Atlantic in so-called Africa,
Right.
or what the Moors would say, Asia South or South Asia, right? Asia Minor, right? Yeah, right. Obviously they're one place. Obviously it's one people. And remember that America comes from Al-Marak, which is Morocco, which is Moors, right? And African is synonymous with Moor.
Right.
When you study scholars who write books about African history and all, not black scholars, the real scholars.
I also thought that America was the conjoining of Africa and Amexem
Right.
together to make
Right.
America.
Yeah. Right. So Amexem is an ancient name of Africa. Numerology taught that, right? And Africa, right, is also a name of America.
Right.
Right. And to get America, you take the AME of Amexem and the RICA of Africa, and then you get America. Don't worry about some European coming over here and then naming this land.
I think that's what you would
over European.
I think that's the other thing that you should get to, which is that if you to do your research, which is what this all comes down to, you'll realize that they changed the maps.
Right.
So that speaks to the fact that at a point this was called something else.
Something else.
And what you realize is that what they've done is they have flipped things around so that you can't identify anymore with what's yours.
What's really
That's
yours.
why they've called over there Africa. They've called them Africans, yet it isn't Africa over there either, right? It's a bunch of countries together, right? So that ultimately you have to research to find out what is really true, because they're lying to you.
Right. On top of that, do your research on the Catholic, quote-unquote, Christian book burnings.
Right.
And all this literature that was Asiatic literature that they pretty much destroyed.
Well, they had to destroy it to rewrite
in
history.
order to rewrite history or
And
reconstruct history.
And that was where the Reconstruction period came into it.
Right.
They had to change everything. So ultimately, too, I think all of these questions have to come with a person needing to want to find out the truth.
Right, right. And also, too, with regard to questions, remember that it's good practice to, when you have a question, to go research it.
Right. Right.
Not that you can't ask someone and get an answer, but in researching, like Numerology said, Moors, I could hear y'all saying it already, man knows not by being told, right? So if man knows not by being told, then how is man supposed to know? By going out and doing research and studying, because, we're supposed to be more scientists, we're supposed to be scholars.
But I think ultimately the answer to all of this gentleman's questions all lie in understanding that what you have been trained or indoctrinated into has been due to someone else's plan,
Right.
not the truth.
That too.
So you would have to want to understand that there's something greater out there.
Right. What do Moors mean when they say Islam as in I, self, law, and master? Right? Again, right? Use the question to answer the question. What do Moors mean when they say Islam as in I, self, law, and master? That's what we mean. I, self, law, and master. Right? That's what we mean. What do you mean you're I, self, law, and master? I, myself, right? Because I study law, I'm the law. I'm the judge, jury, executioner, right? And I'm master. Because it's really coming down to exercising or acknowledging that Moors are the founders of civilization.
Right. But it would also, I think, also speak to one being of a level of master as well,
Right.
Which would then mean that one would be following the tenets of being a master as well.
Which the tenets of being a master, or the direction that the master took to be a master, is to always be a student.
Right.
And never being a master, really. Like, it's not really being a master per se, because just like everything else, if you get to.
But interesting, just I was talking to someone this is years ago too, saying that the so-called terminology of a master now is someone who spent 10,000 hours doing something.
Right.
So even if you want to take that as a ballpark figure, you could look at, if you're looking at any of this as that, one would say, okay, if I want to know what a Moor is, or what Moorish science is, and I want to be knowledgeable at it, I might have to spend 10,000 hours doing it.
Equivalent to that is, Jordan taking 1,000 shots a day.
Well, yeah, I think I worked out to 10,000 hours. I think worked out to be 5 to 7 to 8 years. I quickly do another thing to work it out.
Right. Right. So Islam to the Moors is not what Sunni Shiites and whoever else, Nation of Islam and all these people, what they deal with. We're on a totally different plane. Moors are on a different plane, looking at the everybody else at the bottom or whatever, right? Okay.
So, just to work it out.
Yeah.
Quickly. If you're to spend 40 hours a week, it would take you 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
40 of a normal work
schedule.
8 hours a day. 6 years. 6 years would be 10,000 hours approximately.
Right.
So that's the kind of time you would need to spend to maybe even say to master oneself.
Right.
Right.
Right. And also too, we'll bring up Brother Casanova again, because he put out something the other day about practice not making you perfect, but perfect practice making you perfect. Right? you know, just practicing, because if you're practicing wrong, then you're not going to be perfect. You know, you'll have flaws in your game.
Also, another thing I heard too is something about excellence being what you do.
Right.
So you all ultimately have to be being a Moor, doing a Moor to become excellent at it.
Right.
You can't just say, hi, I'm Moor,
Right.
and expect that that's going to, you have to be doing that all the time.
Exactly. And doing that to the best of your ability is excelling, hence excellence, hence mastery of whatever it is that, you know, somebody's claiming to be professional at or master at. All right. Next question. Does Syrians not being free white people, as in the definition of free white person, have to do with the war over there? Keep in mind that Syrian comes from Assyrian, when the Greeks seen them, right? Keep in mind that Syria was a component of trying to keep Palestine away from the so-called Ashkenazis making up this fake nation called Israel. Also keep in mind that, you know, there was Ottoman Syria at one time, right? Now when we recognize that we have been duped into giving up our birthright, right? We could see why after the Greeks and stuff came, right? This is at the inauguration of President Hashim al-Attazi of Syria in 1936. You get those guys on the top too, right? This is Syrians, right? So because they can't be free white people, just like, you know, Europeans can't be free white people, because really that's a status that belongs to the sovereign, they will dress up and act the part of the free white people in order to do whatever it is that they do. Whether they're doing something legitimate or fraud is, you know, we're not even going to go there, because, you know, you just do your own research on Syria and see what comes up, right? But know that everybody's exercising our birthright in order to do whatever it is that they do. Remember, this is the inauguration of a president, right? And everybody up in there, including the president himself, has their fez on.
What's that for?
Syria. Right? Everybody knows what's up, right? Next question. If I have an attorney, how do you proceed as a Moor? Right? I know Moors are out there laughing, right? You know, this is a, you know what I mean, newly awakened Moor, right? So that's why some of the questions, you know,
that's what we're here for. Right?
Right. You know, and no Moors are, you know, holding their forehead and stuff like that, right? So to answer that question, we'll go to in propria persona, in one's own proper person, right? This is page 899. In propria persona, in one's own proper person. And it goes on to say, it is a rule in pleading that pleas to the jurisdiction of the court must be pled in propria persona, because if pleaded by an attorney, they admit the jurisdiction, as an attorney is an officer of the court, and he is presumed to plead after having obtained leave, which admits the jurisdiction. In some jurisdictions, however, this rule is no longer recognized. Right? So it is a rule in pleading that pleas to the jurisdiction of the court must be pled in propria persona. Numerology told the Moors, be yourself. When he said be yourself, he meant be in propria persona.
Well, is it one of the, you remember that I was telling you, writ of errors that I was showing you that day on the computer?
Yeah.
Well, down on the bottom there, the gentleman had written that attorneys, their first duty is to the courts, their second is to the public, and the third is to the client.
Right.
So ultimately, this isn't a guy you would want looking out for you.
Exactly.
Because he's not looking out for your best interest.
Yep. And they never are. Just go watch the movie Liar Liar with Jim Carrey, and they'll let you know. Right? They're very clear in that movie as to why you shouldn't, anybody should have an attorney. Right? Attorney. In the most general sense, this term denotes an agent or substitute, or one who is appointed and authorized to act in the place instead, or to act in the place or stead of another. An agent, or one acting on behalf of another. This is the concept that people have when they say, "Oh, you're the attorney." Well, he's just representing me. But no, he works for the court. He's actually representing the court, right? And he's playing what's that guy? Dog the Bounty Hunter with you.
Right.
If you hire him.
Right.
And his job is to come get you, bring you, make sure you come behind the bar or whatever like that.
Right.
Shut your mouth.
Right.
You can't say anything because I'm the one that brought you here.
Right.
So I'm gonna do the talking.
Right.
You shut the hell up. Whatever they talk about anything, and then majority of the time, because you have an attorney, right? You're gonna be in a situation where you didn't do anything, but you got jail time.
Or
You got parole. You got
fine.
fines. You got some type of obligation that, the lawyer worked out for you, right? When he doesn't really work.
They say that the lawyer is a spy.
That too, right?
So if you tell him anything, ultimately he will be using that against you.
Right? Now, right? Key point in the definition. When used with reference to the proceedings of courts or the transaction of business in the courts, the term always means attorney at law. Attorney at law. An advocate, counsel, or official agent employed in preparing, managing, and trying cases in courts. An officer in a court of justice who is employed by a party in a cause to manage it for him or her. Right? The term attorney at law, as used in the United States, usually includes barrister, counselor, and solicitor, in the sense in which those terms are used in England. But this is the United States. How come they're relating United States stuff to England? Because the United States is owned by England, so you don't want to get any attorney. You want to study, so you can present yourself.
I think the bar also stands for British
Right.
Accreditation Registry, which is what they all
comes
have to
back
pass.
to them.
So they all have to pass. And I think you also mentioned the officer.
Right.
Officer is, I think, reflects that he is employed by these people.
Right.
Right?
Right. Even though so he's employed by, now look at it in the sense of I don't know what they call it. What do they call it more? Just put the thing on there. The lawyer that the court appoints to.
Oh, public defender.
Public defender, right? Or duty counsel.
Duty counsel. Right.
Okay. They work for the court.
Right.
They're an attorney just like the guy that you hired.
That's right.
So how come that guy works for the court,
Right.
but the one that you give fiat to,
Right.
he doesn't work for the court?
That's right.
That's a conflict of interest.
Not only that, you realize that before and after, these guys go to meet to talk.
To talk and
They go
build.
to have lunch.
On
So-
the floor, they call each other friend.
That's right. Most honorable buddy or
Whatever they
my honored friend
yeah,
or whatever.
right?
This isn't a guy
You
you
know?
want.
Right? And usually, you know, people realize that after.
Right. That's right.
After a trial, they realize, why I hire this guy? I could have went and did everything. I could have did everything myself.
And I think the other thing that what I've noticed through personal experience is that yes, you can get some form of justice, but usually it comes by taking your energies in the form of fiat out of your pocket. The more you pay, the better a lot of the times the outcome will be.
Right.
That then reflects on this not being about justice, but about being about how much fiat or money you're giving these people,
Exactly.
which then then pertains to, and I've heard cases where basically money goes to the lawyer, money then goes to the judge, and that's how justice is done. So it really not being justice then,
Right.
right?
Right.
Man paid his lawyer a certain amount of money, and supposedly the judge then got an envelope, and then man got off.
And this is key as well with regard to, you know, the importance of studying and um, acknowledging that you can present yourself, that you don't need the lawyer. Moors who have been in this situation of hiring a lawyer, attorney, whatever, getting um, duty counsel, public defenders
Right.
put on them or whatever like
Right.
that. Those Moors should be putting out the information that these guys are a fraud.
Right.
Because more than likely, if you're if you were in some type of situation where you had an attorney and then you came into Moorish information, more than likely you dumped your lawyer, right? And then you went on and dealt with it yourself. And however it turned out because you already know you're not the straw, blah, blah, whatever they do, right? But Moors who have had experience with, you know, quote unquote, um, street life and have hired these people. And, you know, street life guys, they have the fiat. So they could pay, you know, 5G retainer plus, you know, $500 an hour or whatever like that to get off their, you know, dime charge that they got, right? And then realize that, you know, you got railroaded by this guy that you hired for 50 million and he didn't do anything for you. You got to put that out there, that these guys are a fraud.
Well, yeah, and in a lot of those cases, yeah, if you paid that money, you will get off those charges, but it doesn't mean that that was lawful.
That you're free, right, right.
Or that it was right.
That it was right.
You have the choice either to live within their system or to claim your own.
Right. Right. Which leads right into the next question, which we kind of answered, but we'll answer it again. Um, um, how does a Moor apply for a job in his free national name? Right? Comes back again. If you gotta apply to those people for whatever, right? You're gonna have to sign something, reserve your rights, and keep it moving. Because more than likely, you know, you're gonna have your, you know, nationality card, paperwork, or whatever like that, you know. You're gonna go into this place for quote unquote, you know, job. You're gonna put down your stuff, who you are, whatever. And more than likely, corporation ain't gonna hire you because they're not paying your tax. They'll just find another nigger who's willing to not be on birthrights, who doesn't know about, you know, living within contracts and all that, and give them the job for, you know, half of what they would have paid you.
Right.
Just because. You know, there's all these people out here who are oblivious to nationality and birthrights. Or, right, or start your own job and forget these people. That way you don't have to pay any tax or anything like that because it's your finance, right? You know, like we said, if you have trade, especially with young people or people who have young people, children or whatever, go teach them, right? Go teach them how to learn a trade so that they can take the position of being free working free, right? Secondly, now, some quote-unquote employers, you can put, show them your nationality card, albeit they'll hire you right away. They'll pay you the top dollar. But, you know what I mean? You can't be faking. You have to be real.
Yeah.
You have to know what it is that you're doing, know what it is that you're talking about, so that when you go on these, as Sister Zara says, the plantations, that, they don't rape you.
Right.
All right? So that was it for all the questions. Again, this is going to be something that we're going to be doing, getting some questions in. All right, so canaanlandguide@gmail.com if you got questions. All right, if we didn't answer your questions, make sure you get at the email, send the email. You need more clarity, and then we could direct people to other sources to get some more insight with regard to getting some answers. One also put this out there because he brought it up yesterday. Mercury retrograde, right? June 7th to July 2nd, 2014. Okay. The purpose of Mercury retrograde is to review and revise our life and our connection with reality. The timing of this universe is geared toward the sun as it moves through the zodiac. Mercury has an orbit that at times gets ahead of the sun, allowing us to look into the future toward new and innovative ideas. However, we cannot continue in that vein until we come back to the present designated by the sun and put our new ideas into manifestation. During the time that Mercury jumps ahead, we ultimately have to bring the ideas back into the present to test and evaluate to see how they fit into our life. As Mercury retrogrades back into the present, the connection with the sun happens as we test drive our ideas and realign with reality and the natural timing of the universe. Mercury itself rules how we think. We will be adjusting everything related to thoughts, concepts, ideas, and communication, especially how technology and material elements play a part in the physical manifestation of ideas. When Mercury retrogrades, we find that many parts of our life are being revised. Often these revisions can be a surprise or throw us back a step. However, these revisions, which occur during a Mercury retrograde, are a course correction and provide a stopgap measure until we can review situations. During this time of revision, change is compounded and confusion is created by our reactions to the ever-changing situations. Thus, anything starting during this time will ultimately be taken back or even revised further, making for a high frustration time. This will be especially true with changing our minds, reviewing new ideas, and our communication being improved and honed so not to be misunderstood. The best mode to be in during a Mercury retrograde is one of non-reaction, and with earth signs being impacted, physical environment will be changing continually during a Mercury retrograde. Treat the time period as a time of gathering information, yet because the information will be in constant change, it would be like trying to comb your hair in a windstorm. Best to wait until the changes stop before attempting to make things orderly. Therefore, just let the winds of situations blow around you without reacting. Once Mercury turns direct, take a look at the information that is still around at the time and go about putting everything in order while maintaining the fine art of flexibility. All right, so June 7th to July 2nd. That's where we're at right now. Okay. As well, just to put something out there, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto also went into retrograde this week.
Actually, I saw that too. I didn't mention it. Well, it was stationary, but I guess
Right.
that. Okay, so go on.
Right? No, there's just
Neptune, Uranus, and what?
and
Mercury?
Pluto.
Oh, Pluto.
Right.
Okay. Wow.
All right. Yeah. Right. Oh, and we just got another Saturn's going to be spinning back in July.
Okay.
So it's just, putting things out there for people to prepare themselves
Right.
for, the change happening. There's an article. There's an article called, just some of it, you could go do your research or whatever. By Don Jade, Donjaide. And the article is called The Swahili Sailors, the Moorish Traders of the Eastern Seas. Right? Since everybody knows except us. Right? Right? In 1331, a very famous scholar and world traveler from the city of Fez, Morocco, traveled down the east coast of Africa. This traveler's name was Ibn Battuta, Battuta. Ibn Battuta left his memoir descriptions of all the foreign cities he visited all over the world. When he went to East Africa, he visited the famous city of Kilwa. Ibn Battuta described Kilwa as one of the most beautiful and well-constructed towns in the world. In the city of Kilwa, government officials, teachers, and accomplished businessmen greeted Ibn Battuta. The people of Kilwa were generally called Swahili. The people of Kilwa were generally called Swahili.
Okay.
Today, as in the past, the Swahili people mainly reside in East Africa. The name Swahili comes from the Arabic term Sahel or Swahil. These words mean shore or coastline. Since they resided along the coastal areas, these East African peoples called themselves Swahili, meaning people of the coastline. The period when the Swahili people initially occupied East Africa goes back more than 2,000 years. Initially, small groups coming from other parts of Africa began to settle in the area. These groups established small villages, blah, blah, blah. The Swahili eventually made contact with other countries along the Indian Ocean. Swahili sailors were able to reach Arabia, India, Indonesia, and even China. Strong trade links, commerce, were established between East Africa and these other nations. The Swahili became very wealthy due to these trade links. Between the 10th and 15th century, more than 30 trading cities or trading empires developed along the east coast of Africa. These cities existed in the areas which today are called Kenya, Tanzania, and the island of Zanzibar. During the peak period of this commerce, on any given day, Swahili sailors could be seen loading their large ships with gold, iron, ivory, and coconuts, and unloading from them textiles and jewelry from India and exquisite porcelain from China. The Swahili also saw ships from China and other nations pulling into their harbors. These ships were making frequent stops at Lamu, Malindi, Mombasa, and other trading city-states along the eastern African coast. These cities had developed into affluent, thriving cosmopolitan cultures due to this trade. East African ivory was in high demand during this period, and this ivory found its way into India, the Persian Gulf, and China. South African gold was also in high demand. And then it goes on more, just talking about these this eastern coast of Africa trade with these people known as Moorish traders of the Eastern Seas. Right? And just to put it out there, if you're looking to have any astrological charts, anything like that done, you can also go to Khalifa Media, and they also offer that service of natal charts, etc. Because Moors do everything, right? Next article, Sultana Afroz, AFROZ, the establishment of Muslim Moorish communities in Jamaica. Assalamu alaikum, the Muslim Maroons and the Bukra Masa in Jamaica. Right, for all the yadis out there. who want to diss Maroons, you know, they want to be Jamaican, not Maroons, because, you know, Maroons are fugitive slaves or whatever, right? Since the prohibition of 1521 applied to all the new territories of Spain, it is likely that Muslim Moorish communities had already been established in Jamaica by 1523, when the first set of African slaves arrived on the island. The presence of 107 free blacks, right, which means that they weren't African slaves, right? 107 free blacks substantiated by the census of the island taken by the Spaniards in 1611 further strengthens the argument that the Moorish communities referred to as Maroon communities were in existence long before the British occupation of Jamaica in 1655, right? So this brother, Sultana Afros, knows that Maroons are Moors. Same thing that we've been telling people out here who are Jamaican, right? You know, some of them decided to say, oh yeah, you know, I recognize that, and nationalize, proclaim their nationality, study, whatever. Some of them think we're crazy people because, you know, the Maroons are rebellious slaves that are anti-government and, you know, they don't want nothing to do with them, right? When the Maroons were there before Spaniards, Europeans, whoever else came there, right? Given the Islamic background of the Moors, it would be very likely that these free Moors, right? So now they call them free Moors, right? Before they were talking about free blacks and free slaves or whatever. Now, acknowledge, right? These free Moors and the Moorish fugitives, the Moorish fugitives, not the African slaves or whatever, Moorish fugitives in Jamaica were of the Islamic faith. Right? So this is why so-called slaves in the Americas follow the North Star, right, to get out of slavery, because as we know, they weren't slaves, they were adepts that, you know, were dumbed down, right? Also, we spoke about it in Django, beginning of Django, when the German freed the brothers and told them, you know, if any of you guys are astronomically inclined, you know, the North Star is right there. And then, if you know where the North Star is, then you know what the hell you got to do, right? Some of the uncertainties regarding the ethnic background of the Maroon leaders at the time of the British conquest can be clarified to some extent by an analytical study of their names. The end of Islam in Grenada as a public religion in 1499 was the beginning of crypto-Islam, whereby crypto-Muslims tried to reconcile the secret practice of Islam with the outward profession of Christianity, often in the form of accepting Christian names. Apparently, Moors with leadership skills were appointed to positions of trust at a time when political and military leaderships were scarce in the Spanish colonial empire in the New World. Don Cristobal Arnaldo de Yassi, right? So DonChristopal Arnoldo De, right? Yassi, Yassi, believed to be a Jamaican-born Spaniard, was appointed the governor of Jamaica by the Spanish king in 1655 during the British invasion of the island, and Don Francisco de Leyva was the Spanish lieutenant general of Jamaica. Yassi is the corruption of the Arabic term yassa, meaning ruler, while Leyba, Leyba, in Arabic means intelligent or lioness. Their surnames suggest of their Moorish origin. Evidently, they enjoyed the loyalty of the black settlements in Jamaica. Despite the numerical strength of the British with their superior weaponry, the defensive fight put up by Yassi's contingent was reported to have caused heavy casualty to the British and caused alarm along the conquering forces of the uncertainties of their hold over Jamaica. Right? So, we can clearly recognize and see, right, that the individuals of all the so-called Caribbean islands have direct connections to Moorish history, whether it's through Atlantis, whether it's through the Americas, whether it's through um, Moors leaving subjugation and expulsion, and in Spain getting in their own boats and going wherever they had other strongholds, right? Um, but when Noble Drew Ali said that the Moors are a seafaring people, it's recognized, right? That, you know, we pretty much had, you know, a base everywhere. There wasn't nowhere that we couldn't go. We can go everywhere for refuge, right? The next little article is by Selwyn R. Cujo, The Spanish Connection. In 1492, Nebjira published Grammatica del Castellano, the first grammar text of a modern language. When the Queen asks why he was writing such a book, he responded, "Your Majesty, language is the perfect instrument of an empire." The Moors ushered into Spain a great cultural flowering and revived an interest in philosophy, medicine, mathematics, and literature. Architecture flourished, and some of the most splendid mosques were built during that period. The philosopher Averroes, Averroes, emblematic of the heights of Moorish learning, translated the works of Aristotle into Arabic, thereby preserving them for the Western world. Much of what we call the European Renaissance was a discovery of what the Moors kept alive during Europe's Dark Age. After the Moors' defeat, the Arabic language was outlawed. They were forbidden to wear traditional dress and were expelled from Spain in 1611. Yet they left their cultural imprint upon the country. Alhambra, the last standing monument of the Moors, remains a magnificent reflection of their scientific knowledge, cultural achievements, and religious convictions, thanks to Washington Irving's rambling expedition to Granada. His Tales of the Alhambra from 1832 introduced the world to this splendid city that sits atop a hill of gold. Spain owned Trinidad until Abercrombie took it for the British in 1797. Its administrative headquarters was located in Venezuela. By then, Spain was in its dotage and had exhausted all of the riches its conquest of the New World had brought it. Poor Apodaca, the Spanish captain, when Abercrombie arrived, could do nothing but give up the island without a fight. Thereafter, we have had to melt our Spanish, French, British, Indian, American Indian, and African inheritances into a unique fusion called Trinbagonianism. As we ponder, we are here. It might be wise to remember that Spain still lingers in our memory. Its rich part is a part of our heritage. And that's for all the people in Trinidad and Tobago who also have a connection to the Moors, because that's one of the closest islands to Venezuela that we know is part of the Moroccan Empire. Yeah, because it's close to Venezuela. So it's part of the Americas. Just like everybody thinks Guyana's in the Caribbean, when Guyana, when that's part of South America too, right? Because they call it a Caribbean place, right? So we have, you know, ample amounts of evidence to allow our people to, you know, get a little bit of freedom, you know, because the subjugation that we've been under is something that, you know, we have to acknowledge is happening, but also recognize that, we've been brought remedy, and it came in the personage of Noble Wali, teaching us about, the truth about our nationality and birthrights and all that. Another thing too that we're gonna start doing is reading a chapter, Quran chapter. Okay. I don't know if you got one that sticks in your mind as one that we could, before we close out though. Okay. You wanna hear.
I got it.
You want the big one or?
You sure?
Because I only have.
Okay, I'll copy.
Some quotes. Read some quotes. This is from The Thing That Ate the Constitution by Robert Anton Wilson. It is as bad as you think, and they are out to get you. Government in its best state is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one. For when we suffer or are exposed to the same miseries by a government, which we might expect in a country without a government, our calamity is heightened by reflecting that we furnish the means by which we suffer. Government in its best state is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one. For when we suffer or are exposed to the same miseries by a government, which we might expect in a country without a government, our calamity is heightened by reflecting that we furnish the means by which we suffer. And that was a quote by Thomas Paine. Okay. A departure from principle in one instance becomes a precedent for a second, that second for a third, and so on, till the bulk of society is reduced to be mere automatons of misery, to have no sensibilities left but for sin and suffering. A departure from principle in one instance becomes a precedent for a second, that second for a third, and so on, till the bulk of the society is reduced to be mere automatons of misery, to have no sensibilities left but for sin and suffering. To live is to live with adequate information. Norbert Weiner, The Human Use of Human Beings. An honest man can feel no pleasure in the exercise of power over his fellow citizens. Thomas Jefferson. Peace comes from communication. Ezra Pound. Thoughts to ponder. Follow the path of least resistance. Following the path of least resistance is what makes rivers and men crooked. I don't know if God exists, but it would be better for his reputation if he didn't. Good intentions will always be pleaded for any assumption of power. The Constitution was made to guard the people against the dangers of good intentions. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be good masters, but they mean to be masters. Good intentions will always be pleaded for any assumption of power. The Constitution was made to guard the people against the dangers of good intentions. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be good masters, but they mean to be masters. Our legal system is a giant practical joke, and my law school diploma is a whoopee cushion. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force, like fire, a troublesome servant and a fearful master. Never for a moment should it be left to irresponsible action. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, a troublesome servant and a fearful master. Never for a moment should it be left to irresponsible action. There is no drug known to man which becomes safer when its production and distribution are handed over to criminals. So no legalizing weed and all that. There is no drug known to man which becomes safer when its production and distribution are handed over to criminals. Sooner or later, this is all Negro black colored people out here. Sooner or later, we must take the bull by the tail and look the facts in the face. A couple more of these and then. War is just a racket. There are only two things we should fight for. One is the defense of our homes, and the other is the Bill of Rights. War for any other reason is simply a racket. In individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, and nations and epochs, it is the rule. Ideas to remember. Every jury in the land is tampered with and falsely instructed by the judge when it is told that it must accept as the law that which has been given to them, or that they can decide only the facts of the case. The jury has the power to bring in a verdict in the teeth of both law and the facts. If a juror accepts as the law that which the judge states, then that juror has accepted the exercise of absolute authority of a government employee and has surrendered a power and a right that once was the citizen's safeguard of liberty. It is not only the juror's right, but his duty to find the verdict according to his own best understanding, judgment, and conscience, though in opposition to the directions of the court. If the jury feels the law is unjust, we recognize the undisputed power of the jury to acquit, even if its verdict is contrary to the law as given by a judge and contrary to the evidence. When a jury acquits a defendant, even though he or she clearly appears to be guilty, the acquittal conveys significant information about community attitudes and provides a guideline for further prosecutorial discretion. Because of the high acquittal rate in prohibition cases in the 1920s and early 1930s, prohibition laws could not be enforced. The repeal of these laws is traceable to the refusal of juries to convict those accused of alcohol trafficking. And lastly, never before in all history have the inequities and the momentums of unthinking money power been more glaringly evident to so vastly change a number of now literate, competent, and constructively thinking all around the world humans. There's a soon to occur critical mass moment when the intuition of the responsibility inspired majority of humanity, in contradistinction to the angered Ludites and avenging Robin Hoods, faced with comprehensive functional discontinuity of nationally contained techno-economic systems, will call for and accomplish a world-around reorientation of our planetary affairs. And that's from a book called Can't Fool the Cosmic Computer. And that's the thing that ate the Constitution, Robert Anton Wilson.
Well, this beginning part of this Pale Horse,
Yeah.
have you read this stuff? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
I mean, this is all part of the King Alfred,
Right.
isn't it?
Yep. And that's why they took him off.
What's he did? A car accident? No, shootout?
Shootout or something like that, highway shootout or something. Because it's clear that he was dropping it on these Europeans, right? Same thing with Walter Rodney, how Europe underdeveloped Africa. You could still get this, good read, right? Before a bomb ended his life in the summer of 1980, Walter Rodney had created a powerful legacy. This pivotal work, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, had already brought a new perspective to the question of underdevelopment in Africa. His Marxist analysis went far beyond the heretofore accepted approach in the study of the Third World underdevelopment. How Europe Underdeveloped Africa is an excellent introductory study for the student who wishes to better understand the dynamics of Africa's contemporary relations with the quote-unquote West. Dr. Walter Rodney, the Guyanese scholar and activist, was tragically killed in the summer of 1980 amidst political turmoil in Guyana. Rodney was a graduate of the University of the West Indies, Jamaica, and London University, where he received his PhD in history. His other publications include A History of the Upper Guinea Coast, 1545 to 1800, and The Groundings with My Brothers. Rodney was a leader in the Working People's Alliance.
Which?
Quran.
Well, I got, maybe we can, I don't know how you want to do it from now
Yeah,
on. No, what I'm saying is,
start at
well,
front.
are you wanting to do this now? Is that what you
Yeah,
want?
we got 10 minutes left.
So, yeah, I mean, I thought the first one would be good.
All right.
Or then I thought, though, I mean, depending on, you have magistrate and subject,
Right.
which I thought was, and then justice. I thought those two might be maybe the first one.
All right.
You want to start with the first one?
Sure. Just to touch on quickly, the Colonial Empires by D.K. Fieldhouse, right? And French officials arriving in a village in Togoland after its transfer from Germany, a typical colonial scene. Right? I already know that y'all are gonna notice something about this picture. Togoland. Continent, right? Over there, right? The people say fezzes are Turk stuff.
I didn't see the picture. Right.
Right? Yeah. And remember, that was a real picture. That was no drawing of nobody. Right? And here's another one. A state elephant in the coronation Dubar process, 1903, in India. Right? You can see the elephant there. See all the turbans, fezzes. Right? And again, it's a real picture. It's not drawing. You know? Once again, everybody knows about us. Well, not us, but
All right, so I mean, I think when I see this Quran, this first chapter in my mind seems to talk about things beyond physical level.
right.
In the sense that, yes, we're dealing with all this stuff, courts, lawyers, all this crap, but really, this is more the soil that we're in before we become what we're supposed to become.
Right.
But I think that we have to conquer this. We have to conquer our inner self.
Right.
And part of that is knowing who we are. So this first chapter is called Chapter 1, The Creation and Fall of Man. Time never was when man was not. If the life of man at any time began, a time would come when it would end. The thoughts of man cannot be circumscribed. No finite man can comprehend things infinite. All finite things are subject unto change. All finite things will cease to be because there was a time when they were not. The bodies and the souls of man are finite things, and they will change. And they will change. Ye, from the finite point of view, the time will come when they will be no more. But man himself is not the body nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. Creative fate gave to spirit man, a soul, that he might function on the plane of soul. Gave him a body of flesh, that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. Why did creative fate give to spirit man a soul, that he might function on the plane of soul? Why did creative fate give to soul a body of flesh, that he might function on the plane of things that are made manifest? Hear now, ye cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, and ye man. Hear now, O protoplasm, and earth, and plant, and beast. Hear now, ye creeping things of earth, ye fish that swim, ye birds that fly. Hear now, ye winds that blow, ye thunders, and ye lightnings of the sky. Hear now, ye spirits of the fire, of water, earth, and air. Hear now, O everything that is, or was, or evermore will be. For wisdom speaks from out of the highest plane of spirit life. Man is a thought of Allah. All thoughts of Allah are infinite. They are not measured up by time, for things that are concerned with time begin and end. The thoughts of Allah are the everlasting of the past unto the never-ending days to come. And so is man, the spirit man. That man, like every other thought of Allah, was but a seed that held within itself the potencies of Allah. Just as the seed of any plant of earth holds deep within itself the attributes of every part of that especial plant. So spirit man, as seed of Allah, held deep within himself the attributes of every part of God. Now seeds are perfect, as perfect as the source from which they came. But they are not unfolded into life made manifest. The child is as perfect as the mother is. So man, the seed, must be deep planted in a soil that he might grow, unfold as does the bud unfold to show the flower. The human seed that came forth from the heart of Allah was full ordained to be the Lord of plane of soul and the plane of things made manifest. So Allah, the husbandman of everything that is, threw forth this human seed into the soil of soul. It grew apace, and man became a living soul, and he became the Lord of all the kingdom of the soul. Hark now, let every creature hear. The plane of soul is but the ether of the spirit plane, vibrating not so fast. And in the slower rhythm of this plane, the essence of life are manifest. The perfumes and the odors and the true sensations and the all of love are manifest. And these soul attributes became a body beautiful. A multitude of lessons man must learn upon the plane of soul. And here he tarries many ages until his lessons are all learned. Upon the boundary of the plane of soul, the ether began to vibrate slower. still, and then the essence took on a final garb. The perfumes and the odors and the true sensations and all of love were clothed in flesh, and man was clothed in flesh. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life. And so a carnal nature was full manifest, a nature that sprang forth from fleshy things. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. And so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight, that he might be the strength of Allah made manifest. Let every living thing stand still and hear. Man is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplast, of mineral, of plant, of beast. But he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. But man will gain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. He must suffer trials, and temptations, manifold. But let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and the spirit of the mighty Allah who rule the solar stars are his protectors and his guide, and they will lead to victory. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by the things he suffers in the plane of flesh and on the plane of soul. When man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will then have served its purpose well, and it will fall and will be no more. Then he will stand untrammeled on the plane of soul, where he must full complete his victories. Unnumbered foes will stand before man upon the plane of soul. These he must overcome. Ye overcome them every one. Thus hope will ever be his beacon light. There is no failure for the human soul, for Allah is leading on and victory is sure. Man cannot die. The spirit man is one with Allah. And while Allah lives, man cannot die. When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul, the seed will have full opened out, will have unfolded in the holy breath. The garb of soul will then have served its purpose well, and then man will need it nevermore. And it will pass and be no more. And man will then attain unto the blessedness of perfectness and be at one with Allah. Islam.
Islam.
So I sense that what this is it's the reversal of perfectedness.
Right.
We were perfect. We come down here.
Come down here, and
Now we're back.
We're making our way back up.
Right. And the other thing that I had come to, and I had a dream about this, was that I was told in this dream I was wearing this special mineral that was supposed to connect me back to the spirits, and it said that every thought is a seed. And I remember it was like I was asking myself these questions, like my inner self, and I was asking these questions. Huh?
You're answering yourself.
I was sort of answering myself, but from a point of like knowing everything, like I was in this dream. But the thing that stuck with me, because I couldn't remember because the questions I asked me were like sort of like foolish ones, like what's this and what's that. But what I realized was that, and I think it talks about it in this, or in further in either this one or I think in the Red Book, where it says that in Greece every thought is a god. Mm-hmm. Right? And that Greece has all these thoughts that become gods that are antagonists. Right. And that really, but it also says in this, in the Holy Quran, that the path to getting to perfectedness is purity. Purity, I think purity, like this to paraphrase it, purity in thought. Mm-hmm. So that is where, when we continue to not have our thoughts being pure, this is where we This is where we run into trouble. Right. But that also, every thought is a seed. Right. I think it was saying somewhere else that, I think whether it was one of your class, you put a thought out, that thought doesn't go anywhere. It'll come back to you, having manifested. 360. So that is where we have to ultimately, I think part of what I've learned, and I've yet to employ it, but trying to change the current of one's thoughts. Mm-hmm. That's why one cannot be black or Negro and have thoughts like that, because that is what is keeping us exactly where we're at. Once we continue to think and be the things that they want us to be, that is what we create.
Once we lose our power to define,
that's right,
we become subject. Islam. So peace and love to all the Moors online. We got 28 minutes, Moorish Heritage and History School, eyes wide open, blog talk, radio. Today, let's throw them up again. Ancient Secret of Personal Power, Tetragrammaton, Hilton Hotima. Cosmic Science of the Ancient Masters, Hilton Otima. Stellar Theology and Masonic Astronomy, Robert Hewitt Brown. Colonial Empires, BK Fieldhouse. Oh yeah, and you can see the turbines and stuff on the cover of this one too. That one's drawing though, so
You might want to dump that one.
The Thing That Ate the Constitution, Robert Antal Wilson. Even though we didn't read any, but How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Walter Rodney, who died by mysterious bomb.
Those mysterious bombs.
Those mysterious bombs. Right? Shootout on the Highway, William Cooper, The Old Pale Horse. The Gospel of Hip Hop, KRS-One. And lastly, on Amazon Books, and you can get, it's official, Noble Drew Ali Plenipotentiaries and the Negro Black Colored Addiction, Grand Chief Cujo Adwell, as edited by Sister T. Naji Ula L. So,
Producing again, eh?
yeah, we're back. We're back. Right?
Wow.
And also, too, don't forget, email address, canaanlandguide@gmail.com. Don't forget, moorishcivilletter.net, harveybaypublications.com, ustream.tv/channel/MST online. That's Grand Chief Nature Al Bay. Khalifa Media. Really check out Khalifa Media. And continue to study. And
when you study
everything you can study.
You ask what to study
next. The master will reply, yourself. And the master is self. I self-law master, Islam. Close out with the prayer. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Oh yeah, by the way, and this shirt is for the Muslims out there. There are some Muslims that one of the Moors was, back and forth and, Islam and what do you mean and who are you guys talking about? You know who Elijah Muhammad is? Yeah, well, he's a Moor. No, he's not. What do you mean he's a Moor? So we just wanted to put this out there, just put out Elijah in his fez so that the Muslims could know that he knows a little bit more than they think. They think that he knows, right?
Putting
He
out
knows
some
a little
very
something.
controversial stuff there.
Yeah, we got to. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. Through His holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Islam Moors worldwide. I'm going to hear y'all in about half hour. And don't forget, go get your stamp, $30, all rights reserved, without prejudice, UCC 1-103, UCC 1-207, brackets 308, right? So you can start reserving your rights on freaking everything that you sign with these criminals out here, because keep in mind, July 1st, July 1st, HJR 2847, if you don't know, they're going to be going in bank accounts and stuff like that, like what they did to other nations out there that were in debt. Unfortunately, the people in the Americas that are under this corporate jurisdiction, they don't have the guts or whatever to tell these people, leave my fiat alone, like Greece and all these other people who, went and pulled people out banks, kicked their ass when they stole their money.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right.
Hungary too.
Yeah, Hungary and people kicking Monsanto out of their country and all that type of stuff. Right, we got mad work to do more, so let's get on it. And once again,
July? I thought it was June.
yeah, July 1st. So all the Moors, stay active. Peace, Hotep, Islam.